How do you build trust when your teachers expect to be judged by your classroom visits? Hi there, I'm Stan Baker along with co-hosts Shelley Steele and Steve Young. We're retired educators who worked in Ontario and neighboring school districts using restorative practices, and now we're coaching principals and staff in restorative practices. In part 2 of our conversation with Craig Russell of Trust-Based Observations, we explore the small but powerful actions that can shift fear to confidence. Things like asking permission, meeting in the teacher's space, and showing up consistently.
This episode is brought to you by the word confidence, from the Latin to trust or have faith. Originally, it didn't mean self-assurance, it meant mutual trust. So when we say we have confidence in someone, we're actually saying we put our faith in them, not just believe in their skills. Confidence grows from doing, not thinking. Despite popular belief, confidence isn't built by repeating affirmations. It's built through action and repetition. Neuroscience shows that confidence strengthens each time we attempt something and survive, even if we fail. It's a practice, not a personality trait.
Our website, www.restorative.ca, is for principals who deal with conflict, who want to make it right in schools, and who want to make it about kids learning. If you're new to your role, in the past 4 years or so, email me, stan@restorative.ca. Now let's join this ongoing conversation with your hosts, Shelley, Steve, and me, Stan.
You're speaking to the choir here around relationships and the need for them. But we have often struggled with, why can't systems make that change? Why don't they get that?
Yeah.
Because it's not... there's learning to it, but it doesn't cost you a lot. It's a different way of doing things. So we've struggled with that question a lot. I wonder what your thoughts on that are.
I think a couple of things. I think one, the thing I talked about earlier, like a business person's mindset to a different industry.
Right.
But I think also, look, I'll see on LinkedIn, on Instagram, Facebook, regularly quotes about relationship and quotes about trust. And on one hand, I'm like, yep. But honestly, on a deeper level, I'm like, it means nothing. It's just words like that, because it's the how and what that matter. How do you build trust? Brene Brown talks about the connection between vulnerability, trust, and risk-taking. She says vulnerability is not a bad thing in and of itself, but when it's too high, almost like she doesn't say this, is my analogy, it's like the amygdala. It's like a sign that something's wrong. So she says the way we get people to take risks is by lowering their vulnerability. The way that we lower their vulnerability is by building trust. She has, to me, what is a really great analogy. She says, think of a jar, and each little consistent action you make is a marble, and you have to fill that jar, and you have to realize that trust takes time. Like the sense that I need to offer you a suggestion right away. No, because trust isn't there. That's why the whole compliment sandwich, 2 stars and a wish stuff doesn't work, because they know you're just saying the nice thing to tell you what they want to fix. Trust hasn't been built. And so like for ours, I'll tell you just a few of the little marbles just to start with, because that's how you build trust. The first one is we have the conversation in the teacher's room, not our office. We say whether you're 7, 17, or 37, getting called to the principal's office feels like getting called to the principal's office. And I bet you all remember a time when your boss called you down and it was nothing, but you freaked out worrying it was. The second one is when we get to your room, we ask permission. It sounds like nothing, but I could say, hey, let's meet, or I could say, hey, is now a good time? The next one is we sit beside you, not across from you, because psychological research on hierarchy in the workplace is when I sit across from you, it magnifies it. The next one is we're transparent. Here's the form. And it goes on and on. It's all the little hows in the reflective conversation and the frequency of interactions that we have. I can't see you twice or 3 times a year and think that's going to build trust. We see you ideally once every 3 to 4 weeks. And now our jar starts to fill. And now when I ask permission to offer Stan that suggestion, he's open. If I offer that suggestion beforehand, he might give me like lip service, but I don't think he's really in there.
I'm thinking of a very specific teacher I had who, if I had wanted to meet with him every 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, he would have called the union, filed a grievance. You can't evaluate me every 3 or 4 weeks. We have a process. You have to follow the collective agreement. And I got around that by simply saying, I'm not evaluating, I'm not even writing anything down. We're just having a conversation. And it wasn't a formalized thing. And to that point is everything, those who are suspicious, who lack trust in administrators because maybe they're more unionized, and those who are heavily unionized will start quoting you chapter and verse every time you look at them.
I know.
But the way you get her, and he would always say, is this going to go in my file? Is this going to go in my file? No. Go in your file. I mean, you look at your file. It's not, we're having a conversation, as you say, in your classroom about something I observed. And I'm going to walk out the door and that's it. And then I might see something in 2 or 3 weeks and we'll have a conversation about that. The first few times you do that as a new administrator in a school, boy, there's suspicion. And as you say, do they ever talk amongst themselves real fast? But after a while, when they realize that there's no, geez, the world didn't end. I still have my job. Everything's good. After a while, they start to relax. And that's when the trust starts to build.
And I'm going to add this important piece, Steve. We build from strengths.
Right.
And that form is designed to notice strengths. And like in my mind, it might not be the highest strength, but if you're doing it at some level, it's a strength. And when you start by building from strengths, that trust starts to come much faster in the process. And I'm going to say one more thing about what you just said is that we've had schools where they've had restrictions about what you can and can't do and how many. And as soon as they've experienced just the training, they have gone to the union themselves and said, no, we want a waiver, because teachers love it so much.
One of the first tasks I had to do was evaluate a teacher. No one had ever showed me how to do it. Nobody ever instructed me. They said, here's the document. It's called the Red Book. Follow the Red Book. It's got the forms. And I did. Evaluating a kindergarten teacher, and I'd always taught grade 8. And I said, I haven't got a clue about kindergarten. So basically, I developed my own, tell me what's going on in this classroom, because I taught grade 8. You're the kindergarten teacher. And that's where I started to do a lot of this stuff. For years, I hated doing evaluations because of the conflict and the nastiness and the evaluative piece of it. But once I started to go in the direction that you are gone with this trust, the observation piece and building trust and relationships, found it to be actually quite enjoyable, and I looked forward to it. And the last 5 or 6, 7 years I worked before I retired, would look forward to do the evaluation. I didn't look forward to writing up the form and all the documents that had to go after it, but I certainly love to go into the classrooms, make the observations, have the conversations with teachers about what they were doing and how the kids seemed to be really adjusting and reacting to it in a positive way. So everything you're saying with your group, trust-based observations, is what I was doing and really thoroughly enjoyed. So I appreciate that you're doing this, and you're doing it from this standpoint. And if I could, I would give you a list of some principal friends of mine who are still working who could probably use your workshop. But I just appreciate where it's coming from, and that you're out there doing that work, which is so desperately needed.
I'm going to speak to school leaders out there, and I'm going to say, what kind of a leader do you want to be? Do you want to be a leader where you're growing your faculty, where your faculty feel appreciated, where they feel valued, where they want to stay, where they're happy, where teaching and learning is improving? And I'm going to say, if that's what you want to be, the way we're doing observations right now inadvertently is working against your best efforts. And so I'm going to challenge you to think about your practice and think about, is there a different way to do it? And if you feel like that's something that resonates with you, reach out and we can at least have a chat and see what we can do to help.
It's a lot of the things that we talk about over and over, but what I really appreciated, it was just in the whole middle of one of your conversations or your talks there, you said, hear the question. I don't know why it's different, but I don't know why it makes a difference. And the reason it makes a difference is because people feel heard. These are all things you've touched on, but they feel heard. They feel honored as a professional, that you respect them, and that you believe that they still have something to offer. And I think that's the piece that gets missed sometimes. People don't understand the power of these small changes in language sometimes, and it is huge. And I like that you've put together, you ran through a formula there right near the end of our chat, and it made me think about being in meetings as a board person coming in around safe schools in a difficult situation, and then an administrator saying, work your magic. The magic was doing the things that you talked about so that parents would again work with them and be open to suggestions. And it's exactly what you've talked about today. So thank you very much.
Greg really gets at the how-to of building trust, which isn't built by intention alone. It's built through small, consistent actions. Where you meet, how you ask, and how often you show up. Even in unionized environments, consistent relational practice can dissolve suspicion and resistance to classroom observations. And when teachers feel safe from judgment, their willingness to reflect and grow increases, which moves the needle on school culture and, guess what? Student achievement. So what do you think? What resonated with you? What challenges do you face with teacher observations? Take a couple minutes to share your thoughts in the link that's in the podcast description. As a former principal, I would not have started with teacher observations as a place to build trust with teachers. But now, having heard this, I strongly recommend using these observations to build trust first. So if you're new to the role of principal or vice principal and you're struggling with teacher observations, email me, stan@restorative.ca, so we can have a conversation about how to make those connections.